Can you check the audio? See if the audio is still working? It's saying it's going live. The only thing I'm concerned about is... Let's try this. Okay, it's showing it's live for me. So it should be working. It should be. Yep, just tell them to refresh the page. Okay, so that should be working right now.
Okay, I'm looking for it here.
How's it streaming on your end? So that class 2 should be up now. Oh no, refresh this page.
Yeah, I keep doing it.
Should show the next channel. It shouldn't have the date on the front. I put it at the end. It should be intro to the debate. That one shouldn't even be on there.
Hold on. I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna come back over here to YouTube.
This is not a good time right now. Thanks. Yeah, let's see.
Make sure it's, here we go. Found it. Let's come up.
Yeah. Okay. So it's saying quite a bit of static, but not overlap. Is it giving you quite a bit of static? It might be because I'm so close. The audio feed is glitching on that.
Yeah, you're okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, it's coming up on my click the channel and it's loading the video right now.
Okay. Well, let's.
As soon as you start talking.
Yep. Let's. Hey, is the audio working on yours?
I want. How do you check the audio? There we go.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Do you hear the audio? Okay. And is it coming okay on the camera? How are we doing, Kurt? Can you hear me okay? Testing 1, 2, 3. 2, 9. What's that?
Take the clock away.
Clock. Okay. Shh. Quiet. All right, let's get started, guys. Let's go in there. Come on. Double time. Right now. Yeah, we're starting now. Let's go. Okay, let's open in a word of prayer. I'm going to jump right into the debate lesson today. We're really crunched on time. The joys of technology. I've worked about 25 hours. We purchased our own internet hotspot and worked a long time on trying to correct the audio feed. But for my live students, if this audio feed is still giving you trouble, please come in and be quiet and take a seat. Grab a seat, you guys. Yeah, thank you. Close those doors, please. Thank you. Yeah, so anyways, as I was saying, the audio feed has been giving us quite a bit of trouble on the live feed, but I think it should be working fine now. How's it on your end, Kurt? Is it recording okay? Yeah, okay. So we're going to jump right into the introduction to Parli debate, but before I do that, let's just bow our heads and say a prayer to the Lord, and we'll get into this lesson. Dear Lord God, I thank you so much for having another day to come and learn and to refine our minds, God, that we might honor you by the things we say and do. God, I pray that you would be with this lesson today, help us to apply the things that we learn, excuse me, and that we might become not only better debaters, but better communicators who can more clearly and accurately communicate the gospel of Christ to a world that desperately needs to know you. So Lord, I thank you for the difficulties in our life that help to remind us to be grateful for the good times, and God, even for the struggles that we go through. Lord, may we have the right attitude and not allow those difficulties to ruin our joy in you. So I thank you so much for this opportunity and for this class now. In the name of Jesus, amen. All right, I want you guys all to get out sheets of paper. You want to take good notes. We're going into the introduction to parliamentary debate today. Parli debate, as you know, is the newest form of competitive debate for the League of Stoa, but it's actually a lot older form than our League Stoa, and then the styles of team policy or Lincoln Douglas debate. That parliamentary debate precedes all of them. So yeah, if you guys can just keep your seats and keep quiet, I'd appreciate it, and we'll jump in today's lesson. So okay. Here's something I want you guys to know right off the bat about parliamentary debate. So, back when our country was just becoming a nation, one of the early congressmen in what would become our United States Congress used a parliamentary debate style in order to advocate for the Declaration of Independence. In fact, this man was credited with being the person who helped to form the first United States Congress militia. He was the one who helped advocate for George Washington to become our first general for the United States. And ultimately, we became an independent nation because of this man's ability to advocate publicly in a public forum style of debate, which is most similar to parliamentary debate. Does anyone know where the parliamentary debate format comes from? Anybody? Yes. Evan Buck. In Great Britain, yes. In the English system, if you go to England today, and we'll see clips of this in the weeks to come, that in the British format of Congress, they actually have real public forum style debates that the parliamentary system is based off of, where the Prime Minister comes and answers questions and has to be able to present arguments to defend his policy. And so what we want to begin to understand is that the parliamentary style of debate, though it's the newest form of debate, as far as Stoa is concerned, it actually precedes it. And the congressman that I was telling you about, who advocated for the Declaration of Independence and used the public forum debate style that it's most similar to parliamentary style of debate. Who is that congressman? Does anyone know? Anybody? Little historical trivia for you. That's John Adams. John Adams was our nation's really first public debater who used his debate skills to argue against those who wanted us to stay loyal to the Crown of England, even at a time when they were oppressing us, killing our citizens, killing our people. John Adams used parliamentary style debate techniques to advocate for the Declaration of Independence and eventually for the United States to become its own 13 colonies and its own nation. And so we'll see that this form of debate actually has its roots back in the public forum style of debate that goes way back to the days of Socrates, Plato's, and even Jesus Christ. The format in that style of debating would have been most similar to the style of debating they had during the life of Christ. In fact, we learn about a man named Apollos who's engaged in these public forum style of debates. In the book of Acts, it tells the story about how he helped to build the early church in Greece, which was known as Achaia back then, because he vigorously refuted the Jews, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, in public debate, proving from the scriptures that Jesus is the Christ. You fast forward some 15 plus, over 1,600 years later, you then have someone else come on the scene who uses public debate, parliamentary debate specifically, to abolish the slave trade in England. And it was his ability to communicate in the Parliament of the British Parliament, where he was able to advocate for the cause in the abolishing of the slave trade. Who am I talking about? William Wilberforce. William Wilberforce did parliamentary debate that he was able to eventually sway the majority of those in Parliament to abolish the slave trade in England. Others like Abraham Lincoln would follow suit and use similar debating style techniques in order to advocate change here in America. So whether we look at the lives of Apollos, William Wilberforce, Abraham Lincoln, and John Adams, they all represent for us a great example of people who used parliamentary style debating techniques in order to affect change of their day. And as we're going to see, that parliamentary debate most closely resembles the real world, right? Because parliamentary debate is the least, preparation a form of the debate. That doesn't mean you don't prepare for it, but it means it's not like you have prep time during the round. Like, it's not like I go to a coffee shop today and I sit next to a guy who's an atheist and he says, yeah, hey, I don't agree that God exists, and I don't say, okay, pause, give me prep time, I'm going to think about that, and I'm going to come up with some arguments for you. No, like if I'm going to have a conversation with this person and they're going to start making arguments against Christianity, I got to respond on the fly, right? I mean, it doesn't mean I need to know everything, but if I'm going to have any kind of intellectual discussion with this person, I have to be able to think on my feet. And what we're going to see, one of the clear advantages to parliamentary debate over the other styles of debate, you want to know what it is that it forces you to use quick critical thinking skills that most closely resembles the real world. Those are two of the big advantages that I'm going to talk about. So let's jump into it. How has parliamentary debate been defined by our League of Stoa? Well, Stoa defines it this way. Here's what the official Stoa statement of purpose for parliamentary debate is. The purpose of parliamentary debate is to train students to employ advanced debate and speaking skills informed by an accumulation of general and specific knowledge on a broad range of topics. The goal is to prepare students to deal with real-world advocacy and argumentation in a manner that exhibits maturity, wisdom, grace, and poise, bringing glory to our Lord Jesus Christ. Now, one of the things I want you to know right off the bat is that parliamentary debate isn't accepted everywhere in our nation today. In fact, there have been some, I think, unfair ideas and kind of opinions formed of parliamentary debate that I really don't feel is grounded in reality. And as we'll see, that there's objections that have been made against the parliamentary debate format, like that it's liar debate, that it's not necessary. I know that another league that I won't name the name of, NCSCA, they literally their person, they're in charge. Not naming. They came out. The person in charge said, "Look, parliamentary debate isn't necessary because of the other formats of debate and because of extemporaneous speaking." And I wish I could debate her on that, because if I could, I would say you're missing some of the unique. Thank you. Yeah, well, they're missing some of the unique advantages that is parliamentary debate. How it's the differences of parliamentary debate that is the most real world, that is the quick critical thinking skills, that most closely resembles public forum style debate that we have today and what is actually done in the public forum. And so I think there are those unique advantages, as we'll see. So that brings me to my first point. And as you're taking notes, I would definitely encourage you to take really good notes and make sure that you get down the main points. So number one, why do we need parliamentary debate? Why do we need it? Well, let's look at some reasons. I have 4 specific advantages that I think are unique to parliamentary debate. Number 1 is that it improves critical thinking skills. I would add a word to this. It improves quick critical thinking skills. It's the ability to think quickly. That's where parliamentary debate is at a premium. Why is that the case? Does anyone know why parliamentary debate over other styles of debate force you to think on your feet quickly? Yes, Cochran.
There's no prep time.
There's no prep time, right? That's a big reason. What's another one? Yes?
You don't have a case formed before you even enter the tournament.
That's exactly it. It's not scripted. Make a note of that. It's not a scripted form of debate. See, in LD and in team policy, by and large, we can even script those speeches. Like, I know people like, they're not really big on the line by line, and they're just kind of giving these overview arguments. They just kind of have their speeches already scripted out, because you kind of know what those debates are going to be like ahead of time, particularly when you're on the affirmative side, right? On the AF in particular, you can script not only your 1AC, but kind of a lot of the other speeches too, because you can begin to predict what the arguments are. You can begin to predict what you're going to say in response to those. You can even write out, as you probably should, a lot of your 2AR in particular can be pre-written so that you already have your voting issues down of what you're going to make as the major issues in those rounds. But in parliamentary debate, you don't get to do any of that. There is no pre-scripting. Now, there is some prep time. As we'll see, there's 20 minutes of prep time once you get the topic, but there isn't that long period of hours and hours and hours to write out your case word for word verbatim, right? It's a much shorter amount of time that you have to work with. So you got to make the best of that time, the 20 minutes. Okay, so improves quick thinking, critical thinking skills. Number 2, the breadth of knowledge. Unlike the other, topics, in parliamentary debate, how many topics do you have a year compared to the rest of the other forms of debate? How many topics do you have in LD this year? 2, right? And I know there are some people who are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we have to research 2 stinking topics. How dare they pass that STOA? I only want 1 topic. Well, in NFL, they have 4 topics a year. So if public students can do 4 topics a year, I think homeschoolers can do at least 2, would be my response. But if you don't really like it, protest to Chase Harrington. He was the big advocate of that. So you can, if you're really upset, be like, Chase, I don't like you as much. So parliamentary debate, on the other hand, is totally different, right? The topic changes every round. It changes every round. Now, that doesn't mean we can't prepare for it, and it doesn't mean there aren't classic topics that tend to come up over and over again. Like one of the topics I can almost guarantee you're going to see this year is illegal immigration. Illegal immigration. Why do I think that's going to be a topic that's going to come up? Anybody tell me? Yeah.
Because we're having a lot of illegal immigrants.
It's in the news, right? It's in the news now. And so what you want to make a note of is that what's in the news is likely going to drive the new topics. And this is what keeps parliamentary debate fresh. You get to debate new ideas. Like ISIS wouldn't even have been a topic this time last year. But now we can expect to have to debate what the U.S. policy, whether Obama's taking the right approach with ISIS, whether that's the good policy. That's going to be a topic that we're probably going to see this year. And that's because it's in the news. It's relevance, what's happening now. Number 3, it's fun. I really think parliamentary debate is the most fun form of debate. You want evidence for this. The 2013 rounds, go watch if you can. I don't know if they recorded all the team policy rounds, but compare the parliamentary semifinal round that Brandon and Manoa debated against Jonah Ortiz and Caleb Pena. That, in my opinion, is the single best round I've ever seen in homeschool debate. That semifinal round from 2013, Pena Ortiz versus Martin Winchell, was the best round I've ever seen in high school at all, at this level. That was my favorite round. But even the final round I thought was quite more entertaining and fun compared to the policy rounds. And no offense against, we had one of the teams in the semifinal round, but from what I could tell, the policy rounds were boring. They're longer and they just didn't have the kind of fun interaction that parliamentary debate has. And so parliamentary debate, I think it's the most fun. And this is also why it's the most popular in college, by the way. So you learning to do this now, if you have any ambition to get a college scholarship, I think like Brandon Manoa, I can't say for sure, but I know that Concordia gives over $6,000 in scholarship for top Parli debaters. And I've heard of people getting a full ride to places like Patrick Henry College, and I know King's College gave a big scholarship for parliamentary debate students who were pretty successful. So there's definitely scholarships to being good at this activity in parliamentary debate. But number 4, it's the most real world, right? Like I gave you that example of debating the atheist, right? It's going to require me to think on my feet, to work off unprepared notes, right? I don't have like my files that I get to pull out when I'm having that conversation. I've just got to be able to think clearly and respond. And that's what you need to be able to do too. And that's what Parli Debate's going to do. And let me just say this. For some of you who are like, I don't want to do Parli, I don't like Parli, Parli's of the devil, I don't want to, why do you hate me, mom and dad, making me do Parli Debate or something. All right, listen, even if that's your attitude, for one, your attitude stinks, would be my first comment. That's the wrong attitude. But the second thing I'm going to say to you is that even if that's the case, if you like LD or team policy better, you should still focus some time on parliamentary debate, because the skills in parliamentary debate will cross over and make you a better team policy or Lincoln Douglas debater. Look at last year. Look at the people who made it to the semis and finals in LD in particular. I know, was it Rachel Donka, right? She made it to the finals in both, didn't she, if I remember right? I mean, it's not like she was good at one and then when she went to Parli, she just was bad. No, it's those skills cross over, and you get to do twice the amount of debating at tournaments where they have both styles of debate, because Parli is always off track compared to LD team policy. See, LD team policy, you have to pick one, but with Parli, you get to permutation, you get to do both, right? So it's an excellent crossover skill. I didn't write that on there, but that's that's advantage number 5, is that it crosses over and will make you better at the other form of debate that you may like better. Now, it is my favorite form of debate, and I think it is the most for the real world, and so I'm a huge fan of it. Our club, by the way, do you know that our club is going to host our own Parli one-day tournament? Have you heard this? Woo, I'm excited. The tentative date for that right now is December 15th. There is a possible, whatever the second Saturday is of December. That's when it is. I think that might be the 13th, actually. I don't have it in front of me, but we have our own one-day tournament coming up in December. Okay. Read the rules. That's the second thing you need to know about parliamentary debate, is you need to know what the rules say. Do you know what the one thing you're allowed to bring into the round that is printed material? There's only one thing you're allowed to bring in that's printed material. This isn't a trick question, but what is it, Jasmine? The rules, right? So everybody should go home tonight and print out a copy of the STOA parliamentary rules. And you should put that in like your Parli files and your debate files and have at least one, if not 2 copies of the rules ready to go. Why might you want to do that? What's the advantage to that? Yeah?
In case you think that there might be an infraction of the rules during the round.
Absolutely. If there's, if you can, you think they're doing something that's against the rules, they have printed material with them in the round, do you think it might be handy for you to have a copy of the rules and say, Judge, they're not supposed to bring printed material into the round. That's against the rules. Here it is. It's letter D, section 2. We actually formatted the rules now to have subpoints and letters, and it's more like a lawyer's rule document because it was reformatted by an attorney. They had some poor schlop put some of his time this summer into reformatting both the policy and the Parli rules. So I hope you appreciate how clearly they are structured now with subpoints. And if you don't appreciate that, please keep that to yourself. But if you do, please let the committee know that you appreciate that, I guess. So, okay, let's move on to number 3. We want to distinguish Parli from the other forms of debate. If you don't know what the other forms are, well, you should go and research that. We'll have to have that discussion. And if you're new to this class or you're new to debate, that's going to be a discussion for another time. But I'm expecting you to have some of that knowledge when I'm telling you to distinguish Parli from the other forms. If you don't know what the other forms of debate are, just keep taking good notes and we'll discuss that with you later. Okay? Let's look at 8 ways to distinguish Parli. Here's the 8 things you need to know about parliamentary debate. Number 1 is that it's limited prep debate, right? You have anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes at the most to prep for your case, which means you'll get a topic and then you'll have to prep for that topic within that small window of 15 to 20 minutes. Now, as you're going to see, we're going to be able to develop case files. We're going to be able to develop files that will have the details and facts for arguments that we'll be able to maximize this prep time because we've already done the background work. So, for example, we debated last week. What was the topic that we debated last week? Anybody remember? Yeah, the topic was "This House Regrets the Facebooking of America." Social media is definitely a topic you could expect to see in parliamentary debate. It's a highly debatable issue. There's a lot of pros and cons. If you do some pre-research and find evidence about like how many hours does the average American teenager waste on Facebook a day, like what's the average of the American household, you know what I mean, using Facebook? How many like marriages has Facebook ended? And you find some significant disadvantages, I think, there, right? How it's been used to perpetuate crimes and bullying, cyberbullying, right? Those would be some of the disadvantages. But then if you, on the other side, you do some of the pro research, you'd find things like how organ donation has gone up, how it's been able to save people's lives because they've been able to ask for organ, like, hey, I need a kidney. Can you donate? Does anyone got, a kidney? Or I need this blood type. I need this rare blood type. Does any of my Facebook friends have this rare blood type, right? And so people's lives have been able to been saved that way. So that's the debate, right? So you find those pro arguments. You find arguments about how it's connected long lost friends and improve their their communication and connection and help people connect. So those would be the arguments, right? You want to find those types of things out ahead of time so that during that prep time, you're just turning those ideas into arguments that you can use in the round. And we'll talk about the format and how you format arguments in the weeks to come. But suffice to say for now, Parli is a limited form of debate that relies on either your ability to find information out during that amount of time, or it relies on your ability to have some work done ahead of time that gives you some facts and evidence, right? Now, last week, it was really easy for the teams debating. You know why? Why was it so easy? Because they had a prep coach. They had a coach there to say, here, I'm spoon feeding you, Evan Buck, say this. You know what I'm saying? Austin Janik, you guys go in, make these arguments, and you're probably going to win, right? So that's the cool thing about Parli. You can prep with other people, right? You can share ideas, share arguments. That's unique to Parli, definitely in that aspect. And so having a good prep team is important. It certainly can help you at the big tournaments, right? Now, we want you to be able to prep yourself, and certainly for my online students, I want them to be able to prep themselves. But for the big tournaments, particularly for Night Talk or for Concordia or Point Loma or ICC, Inland Club Challenge, those tournaments, what's the big advantage that you guys have? The best darn prep squad in the nation. That's what you guys have. And I say that unashamedly because I want you guys to be as prepared as possible. We want to raise the bar of Parli debate. What I saw last year at Night Talk, when I didn't have anyone we were really pushing for Parli, other than I was able to help a few of the other students from other clubs, is I was like, man, the level of Parli debate, we can do better than this as a league. And so if I can elevate this as a league, that's what I'm out to do. And that's why I'm allowing people who are not part of my club to listen in to these lectures. I'm not hiding something from them. I want them to be better. I want to train you guys so that we have better equipped homeschool students who can go out into college, go out into the real world, and be ready for that battle, because it is a battle. And I want you guys to be as prepared as possible for being able to advocate for your faith and for the ideas that you believe in. You know what I'm saying? That's important. That's important. Let's go to number 2. There's no prep time during the round. See, in Lincoln Douglas debate, you have prep time, and team policy, you have prep time. In fact, during cross-examination, particularly during policy debate rounds, you have an additional 3 minutes of prep time while your partner is asking questions, right? In a team policy round. In parliamentary debate, do you have any of that? No, there's no prep time during the round. You can't be like, hey, I can't think of anything, give me some time here. I gotta think, you're looking around, it's like your time to speak, and you're looking for your flow papers, and you're like, oh, I don't know where I stuck my stuff, and hey, you're just taking time to get up to the podium or something. I've seen people try to get some more prep time, and they're dropping their pen and picking it up or something. That's kind of cheesy. We don't want to do anything cheesy to try to get more prep time. We just want to go up and do our best. And we're going to teach you techniques, how you can think logically. In the weeks to come, we'll be teaching you about logical fallacies, how to think and reason out your ideas so that you can think think on your feet, let me tell you this, if you will just believe in yourself and put some trust in us, you'll be able to do it. I know it seems kind of daunting, like, hey, I'm going to walk into rounds without evidence files, without pre-prepared material. Yes, and you're going to win because we're going to help you. And you're going to learn to get better. It's going to happen, but you have to be willing to trust us, and you have to be willing to buy into the idea of what we're trying to coach to you. You know what I mean by buy in? Like, you got to believe it. You got to be willing to put some time in and do the work. Let's look at number 3. Here's the third difference. The topic changes every round, right? We've already talked about that a little bit, that the resolution's going to change. That doesn't mean that they don't repeat, though, right? It's entirely possible you'll see illegal immigration at more than one tournament this year, right? You might see it at 2 or 3, right? Social media, same thing. ISIS, the ISIS terrorist problem, that's a big one. That's going to keep coming up. Minimum wage is a popular topic I would expect to see over and over again. Classic topics like the death penalty, that might come back up again. Anything that's in the news that is highly controversial, they'll try to make a resolution out of that idea, right? That's something you could expect to see every round. Okay, number 4, there's no cross-examination, but there are points of information and points of order. We'll be teaching you more about this in the weeks to come, but suffice to say for now, points of information, here's a definition for you. POIs are points of information, which are questions that you ask during the round to get clarification or to make an argument, right? I can ask points of information about parts of their plan that I don't understand, right? Or like how much funding their plan would require, right? So like, let's say the resolution is that the United Nations should send in a security force into Somalia. That's your resolution, like that the UN should send in military force. One of the questions you might ask is, how is the United Nations going to pay for this? Because it's going to cost a lot of money for them to send over troops. Where's your funding coming from? That's a fair point of information question to ask, right? So points of information are questions that are asked during the first 4 speeches. Make a note of that. Have to be done in the first 4 speeches. And here's the second rule that you need to know about points of information. They can't be done during the first minute of the speaker's speech time, not during the first minute, and not during the last minute either. So neither the first minute of the speech or the last minute of the speech, neither one of those can you ask questions. Those are considered protected time. If you're the speaker and someone stands to ask you a question during protected time, what can you say to them?
I'm sorry, this is protected time.
I'm in protected time. That's your response. Hey, I'm not going to take your question. I'm in protected time. And then move on. Right? We'll talk to you more about how to handle points of information down the road, but suffice to say for now, what you need to know is that the speaker's in control. You don't have to take their question if you don't want to, but on average, you should at least take 2, maybe 3 questions per constructive speech. Okay? 2 to 3 is a good rule. There's no specific rule on this, but I'm just saying it's a good standard to follow to take about at least a couple questions. And you don't have to take them at the time they're asking them, right? So if you're asking me a point of information question during the middle of my topicality argument or in the middle of my disadvantage or my contention, I can simply respond, hey, I'll take your question at the end of this position. When I'm finished answering this position. So I'm not going to let them break my flow up at the time I'm making an important argument. Do you understand? That's part of the control that I want to have during parliamentary debate. Points of order are the ultimate weapon that separates parliamentary debate from the other forms of debate. A point of order is something that is done in the last 2 rebuttals, okay? A point of order is something that's done during the last 2 rebuttals. And it's specifically where the team that's not speaking says point of order. They'll say that out loud during the person's speech. The judge will stop the round time, stop the time of that 5-minute rebuttal speech. And the person raising the point of order is able to say something like, that argument is a new argument. The argument the speaker just made is new, or it's a grossly misinterpretation of what we said. It's generally got to be probably one of those 2 things. It's either where it's just they're bringing in a brand new argument, or they're grossly misrepresenting what you said. But here's a good rule to follow. I'll take your question in just a second. make sure that you don't abuse this. These should be done sparingly. You want to be pretty sure that something abusive is really taking place when you use a point of order. This can be done anytime. There is no protected time from points of order. That whole 5-minute rebuttal, a point of order can be raised. So during that full time. Well, oh yeah, please go for it. Yeah, we'll be done in about 15 minutes or so.
We're going to be over in the other room tonight.
Oh, okay, thanks. Okay, so the point of orders are basically the ability of the team that's debating has the privilege to raise a point of order to say some violation of the rules that's taking place. Does that make sense? The most popular form of point of order is during a new argument being made. Okay? All right. So 8 ways to distinguish Parli. That was number 4. Point of order. Read the rules on that too as well. Make sure you know what the rules say about POIs and points of order. Okay. Number 5. It utilizes 3 forms of debate. This is important for us to know. 3 forms of debate. Number 1, it utilizes this form of debate called fact debate. Fact debate. What is a fact debate? Well, it's a debate based off of whether or not something is true. Okay? This is totally unique to parliamentary debate. You want to make a note of this. I would encourage you all to be taking notes too right now, so you can remember this information when you get into the round. If you don't have a piece of paper or a pen, please borrow one from your partner or your friend. Everybody should be taking notes. Okay, so fact debates. Fact debates are topics like this. Here's a classic fact debate. Ronald Reagan was the best president of the 20th century. Ronald Reagan was the best president of the 20th century. Why is that a fact debate? Well, it's not presenting any kind of value for you, and it's not suggesting you pass some sort of a policy. It's simply making a statement. So fact debates make a statement, right? That the affirmative side has to prove true. Do you know, so it's got a different objective. This is an important point of fact debates. Fact debates are a lot like court arguments. See, in court, you're trying to prove the fact whether or not like the defendant is guilty, right? I mean, if we were in a court and we were, say they had pulled us in court for determining whether or not, Ray Rice should be fired from the NFL, or what, his penalty. Well, that's a fact-based issue that we look at there. Does Ray Rice, is he guilty of a NFL rule violation that should make him banned for life, right? How many of you know what the Ray Rice situation, really? I mean, it's like the most popular news story, at least just about every channel I listen to. It's like they can't get enough of this topic. The news outlets are playing it over and over again. So that would be a fact topic, though. Is this person guilty? Does that make sense? Questions of guilt are questions of truth. They're not of value. It's not like you're comparing, liberty, individual liberty versus national security, something like that. That's going to be a value topic. Yeah.
Last week's resolution for the practice round, that was that resolution, right?
Well, it could have been interpreted, it's open to interpretation, I would say. Because if this House regrets the Facebooking of America, that regretting you might want to implement a policy then and say, hey, well, since we regret how Facebook has been expanded and how it's being used among young people today, we want to pass a policy that no one under the age of 18 should be allowed to use Facebook. There's probably a good debate to be had on that. Whether or not America regrets Facebook could probably best be proven true, or that debate would probably best be served by passing a policy that goes one direction or the other. Something like raising the age to 18 might be a good way to do that. The criteria that you use for fact debates is what we call preponderance of evidence. Write that down, preponderance of evidence. So you want to be able to tell this to the judge. The classic criteria for a fact round is preponderance of evidence. And what that says, if we can prove the truth of this resolution by 51%, you should vote for the affirmative side. So using my Ronald Reagan topic, I have to prove that in the 20th century, if I'm on the affirmative side, the government side of the topic, that Ronald Reagan was the best president of the 20th century. that Ronald Reagan was the best president of the 20th century. That's a fact resolution. How might I prove that, by the way? What might I use to prove whether or not Ronald Reagan was the best president of the 20th century? How might I prove that? Yeah?
You can parametricize or limit around to a specific parameter like national defense or the economy.
Sure.
And say that if I can prove that he was the best in this area, then we should win.
Right, you might say it this way. So on Evan Buck's point, it's that the president's job is to be commander-in-chief. Like that's one of his first and foremost responsibilities as president is to be commander-in-chief of our military branches, right? And Reagan did a great job of this because he was able to remove some of the greatest threats to our national security during his presidency. You might look at contention 1, ending the Cold War. Contention 2, helping to break down the fall of the Soviet Union. You know, that the Soviet Union collapsed during Reagan's presidency, that he helped end the Cold War, helped bring down the Soviet Union. He broke down the Berlin Wall. That's a huge, huge step that Reagan took. If you don't know what the Berlin Wall is, you should research that and know how communism worked prior to Reagan's presidency in Germany and how it had a grip and bondage of people's lives in, I think it was West Germany or East Germany, one of the Germanys at the time. And the wall was broken down during Reagan's administration. So you could say these were big achievements made during Reagan's presidency that proves the resolution true. No other president of the 20th century had these achievements, right? Now, if I'm on Khan, what am I going to argue? I'm going to argue that there are other problems, like the Iran-Contra scandal, that he helped to arm people in Iran, and that went south. You would raise that scandal as a problem of Reagan. You might also point out that there's another president that's better, right? Like how about you might go for like Theodore Roosevelt, for example. You might argue Theodore Roosevelt was a better president. Does that make sense on the con? And you'd provide contentions to prove that true. As a whole, I generally don't like, facts are not like my favorite debates, though at the final round of NIHD East, we ran this resolution as a fact that Hillary Clinton will be the next United States president. Now, the interesting thing about this resolution, it's not saying that Hillary Clinton is the best choice, right? I mean, that might be a hard resolution to win in this league in particular, right? I mean, people would be like, boo, boo. And like, but when the government did a good job, my buddy Joseph Abell, who may be watching this right now, what he argued was like, look, we're not saying she's the best choice or that she's even a good choice. We're just saying the facts are that she's more likely to be the person who wins. And they ran contentions about how the Republican Party is fractured, how there's like the Tea Party against the moderate Republicans, how there isn't a clear front runner among the Republicans, how there's all this other things where Hillary has all of this support on the Democrat side, how she has all of this money and experience and things that, and they brought in poll numbers. They showed that right now, according to national polling data, she's the one that would likely win out of potential presidential contenders if the elections were held today. Those I would all say are troubling facts maybe for us conservative people, but they're making a good case. Do you understand? And AF did end up winning the NIHD East final round in the final Parli round, and they won them with those types of arguments. They brought in facts about the polling data to prove the resolution true. Does that make sense? So that's what a fact resolution is all about. Let's go to the next one, value. The value resolution. Value resolutions, those are just like your LD value resolutions, right? The classic value debate would be something that pits two values against one another. Something like individual liberty is better than national security, or should be valued over national security, right? Right now in the NFL league, they have a topic in their LD, in their value, on organ donation, whether or not organ donation should be automatic. Like right now, you have to opt in to become an organ donor. Does everybody know what I mean, organ donor? I'm not talking about playing an organ at the church, right? A totally different organ, right? I'm talking about bodily organs. Like there's a list of people right now that are on a waiting list for getting things like lungs, kidneys, hearts. And these people, because of the long wait list, they're likely to die because of a shortage of organ donations. I mean, at least the life expectancy of these people is not as good, right? Because they need, parts from someone else that have to be donated, from them, And so what happens if you become an organ donor, you either get like the bracelet thing or you get something on your driver's license that proves that you're an organ donor. That's how the status quo works. But the way it works in Spain, and the way that the resolution is forcing the NFL students to debate it, is that you would be automatically an organ donor just by being alive in the country. You have to opt out in Spain as opposed to opt in. And so that debate's going to pit this idea of personal liberty of my body, whether or not I should be forced to be an organ donor. Not even forced, but whether or not I should have to opt out. Does that make sense? And if I don't, they're going to, if I get in an auto accident, they're going to take my lungs or my kidneys, and they're going to donate it to someone else. And I'm not necessarily against that, but I kind of want to put some specifications to my organs. Like, if someone's going to get my lungs, I'm going to be like, look, dude, you can't smoke anymore or something, right? I kind of want to have this contract with my body parts that hey, no abusing this part. I took good care of it or something, right? I don't know. So that's value debating though, right? Because in those debates, you're going to have the necessity of, providing organs to save people's lives versus individual liberty of someone's body. And that's what those debates are going to be about. They're going to be about this constitutional right to be my own personal property of my own organs, that the government shouldn't have a right to them. I shouldn't be forced to opt out, versus the necessity of having organs for those on wait list. Does that make sense? So those are the clash of the ideas. The national security of how much the government should be able to spy on us versus our value of individual liberty. The government's need to stop terrorists versus our need to have personal freedom, right? Those are value clashing ideas. That's what the value topics are all about. Yes?
I've been watching the Google chat, and they're asking you to repeat the questions so that they can also hear it. 'Cause
Okay.
they get questions.
Excellent point. Yeah, even if I don't repeat the question, I'm giving them the statement that the question was based off of. So I try to catch that. But thank you. Thank you for doing that. Okay. So last form of debate is the policy form of debate, which is just like our team policy. In policy Parli debates, they're the same type of cases that we would run on team policy. So this year the policy topic is electronic surveillance. Could you get a Parli topic that's similar to electronic surveillance? Sure. And as we're going to see tonight, for those of you doing the practice rounds tonight, we're going to have a resolution based off of this year's policy topic. So I'm not going to give you what that resolution is going to be just yet, but it's going to be based off of the policy topic. So what are classic policy resolutions? The U.S. federal government should abolish the death penalty. The U.S. federal government should reform its policy on illegal immigration. The U.S. federal government should take a stronger military stance in the Middle East. The U.S. federal government should aggressively pursue ISIS. The U.S. federal government should do something. The U.S. federal government would, or this. It doesn't have to be the U.S. federal government. It tends to be. It can be anybody else. For it to be a policy resolution, here's your indicators, okay? Listen, it's the word should and the word would, or it's a resolution that has an actor taking an action. Like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation should reject their population control policies. That right now they're promoting the UN's population control policies that promote abortion and is immoral, right? I don't think you'd see an abortion topic, but it's possible. I don't think so, though. Just because that would be too controversial, right? And we wouldn't want one of the sides to have to argue in favor of abortion, so you're probably not going to see a policy on that. But what you are going to see policies about is going to be things like what kind of humanitarian intervention the United States should take with other countries, right? There was definitely, and maybe some rightly so, criticism of the United States for leaving so many refugees who are fleeing ISIS from Iraq up on that mountain, right? There's a ton of refugees who fled that area. There was even footage of them going in and rescuing some of them. But thousands of refugees, right, were facing starvation. They were facing death from ISIS, and they were running for their lives. And so the necessity of addressing that is a big issue. So, okay. All right. So that's what policy debate is all about. Real quick, criterias. On fact debate, I told you preponderance of evidence. On value debate, traditionally the value is the criteria. Another way of presenting a criteria in value debate is to say on balance. That's what they do in college debate. They say on balance, personal liberty should be favored over national security, on balance. That if you have these scales of balance, that this value is more important than this value. If we can prove that to you, then you should vote with our side that's upholding our value. Does that make sense? That's on balance. Okay, policy resolutions traditionally use the paradigm of net benefits. This is also known as cost-benefit analysis. Why we use net benefits, by the way, has everything to do with what our government uses. See, back in, what was it, the 30s, maybe, 1938, I think it is, U.S. passed the U.S. Flood Act. You can Google this. The U.S. Flood Act is when the United States Congress adopted cost-benefit analysis as our criteria for policy making. See, prior to that time, we were spending, millions, if not billions of taxpayers' dollars building, these dams, huge dams, that in some areas it was more financially affordable for us to let the area flood. And so they did cost-benefit analysis to determine whether or not the policy actions we were taking were actually financially viable. And that's the criteria that's going to make the most sense that correlates with policy topics that go together. That when you pass a plan, you got to prove that it's net beneficial, right? Okay, moving on. Number 6, here's another distinguishing fact of parliamentary debate. It allows for audience interaction, as we've been getting this evening, right? Like, the really unique thing about parliamentary debate is that you can get some feedback from the judge even, right? Like the judge can show whether or not they agree or disagree with the argument that you're presenting by tapping on the table or by shaming you, that sort of a thing. Yeah. Okay, number 7, metaphor resolutions, metaphor topics. Yeah, did you need me?
Well, yeah, and we had this all set up the way we wanted it. Can you set the table?
Yeah, we're going to reset it for you guys by 7? Right. Yeah, we can still do that. Yeah, give me 1 second. Working? Am I on the right channel? Yes? Maybe? Okay, so metaphor resolutions. Is it clear, Kurt? Can you hear me? Yeah, okay, so metaphor resolutions. Those are resolutions like the other shoe is about to drop, or the light at the end of the tunnel is an oncoming train. Metaphor resolutions are a resolution that brings in some other analogy type language that you get to interpret by making it a fact, value, or policy. Really, metaphor resolutions, I'm not a fan of them because it doesn't give the neg a lot to prep for. Traditionally, what we'll see is that the neg really has to prep topicality really well when there's a metaphor resolution, and they can begin to predict some arguments on neg, but for the most part, if it's a really vague metaphor resolution, then it's really hard to prep on the op. because you don't know what they're going to, if the resolution is the light at the end of the tunnel is an oncoming train, how would you know what that round is going to be about when you're on the opposition? Now on the affirmative side, we likely run something like universal health care, right? It's something that looks good, right? Like universal health care. So universal health care looks like something that would be our salvation, right? But it's really bringing us into impending doom. Would that work? Yes, it would work, because look, if the metaphor resolution is the light at the end of the tunnel is an oncoming train, then the idea of that resolution is that you're in a dark cave, but what's up ahead, what looks like it's going to be light, is actually bringing about your death and destruction. That what looks like your salvation is actually a train that's coming to mow you down, right? That's what a metaphor resolution is all about. And so what we want to understand about parliamentary debate is when we get resolutions like that, they're open to some interpretation. And we have to be prepared for that and know that that's a possibility. There's also partial metaphor resolutions, which will be like half of a metaphor, connected to a policy. Like the other shoe is about to drop in our healthcare system or something like that, right? It would be like a mixture of something that's clear with something that's vague.
We're moving, so.
Okay. Number 8 is there's no printed evidence in the round. There's no printed evidence allowed in the round. We've already made a point of this. What is the one printed thing you can bring in? The rules. The rules. Okay. So the key to Parli is organization. Organization includes these things. Number 1, creating templates for all 3 forms of the debate. I will send you guys a case handout that will show you how to structure a policy case, and you'll see that in the email that I'm going to send out to everyone, including the online students. It's a template that shows you how to quickly format the case together. And you want to have templates for each of those 3 forms. So what are the 3 affirmative side or government side templates that we need? We need 1 for policy, we need 1 for value, and we need 1 for fact rounds. Does that make sense? So fact, value, policy, each one of those should have 1 of their own resolutions. Yeah. Okay. All right. Last couple things on this in our class. We're almost done. Just a couple other quick points and we'll wrap this up. Number 2 is that the students must know how to write a disadvantage on the fly. We'll show you how that's done. We'll clearly give you some examples of that, but we must know how to write disadvantages on the fly, how to structure them. We'll teach you what that structure is in the coming weeks. Number 3 is we must have a counter plan strategy. Must have a counter plan strategy, must know like how to run a counter plan, what that looks like. And number 4 is we need to memorize our templates ahead of time so that we can quickly structure them on the fly. We want to be able to do all of those things in a short amount of time. Okay, so with that, we're going to end there, and then we're going to break into our practice rounds in just a few minutes. But before I let you guys go, I want to just make sure everybody's on the same page. So this week, we're going to send you out your homework assignments. You'll be getting those by tomorrow. If for some reason the live stream wasn't good, we'll upload this video to the YouTube account so you can go back and watch it. And I would encourage you guys, if you're new to Parli Debate, come back and watch over this class so that you know what the key things that of parliamentary debate are, so that those ideas are fresh with you. This is our last entry-level talk that we're going to do for the full class. We will still have other novice and entry-level classes that we're going to teach you. But for the video and online students, we're going to be doing more advanced classes for them in the weeks to come, and for a lot of the open-level students as well. So we'll be splitting you guys up. The advanced and open-level students will be with the video online class as we go into the more advanced lectures in the weeks to come. And I want to make sure that you guys have access to this information in a way that makes sense to you, in a way that's really clear as far as what we're trying to teach you on a week in, week out basis. So If something is not clear to you, if you're a new student or you're an online student, feel free to type a question onto our YouTube channel or email me directly. I will answer emails that are directed towards debate-specific questions. I usually can get to those tomorrow. Tuesday is a good day to reach me. You can also call me by phone. My phone number should be in the email that you've previously gotten, or it's on our website. You can get that there as well. You all should have access to our YouTube channel. We'll continue to upload videos in the weeks to come. But ideally, this is going to be an interactive experience for both our online students and our class students. And we want you guys being able to connect with one another and do your own debates over the internet, right? We want you to be able to connect and have your own debates over the internet on the live stream, okay? So if there's any other questions or something's not clear for you and you're like, I just don't get this, how Parli debate's gonna work, well, just give us time, we'll explain things to you. We understand some of you are new, all of this is brand new. We're not gonna force the brand new students to debate tonight. We're gonna encourage you to, but we are going to help walk you guys through this process so that you'll understand how parliamentary debate works and how to take advantage of it. Okay? All right, so with that, we're going to take a break, and we'll leave it there, and we'll... is there any other questions before we move on to our break? Yes?
I just had one. When you're doing point of information,
Right.
you ask, or can you point of information your own partner if they forget?
Okay, so her question is can you ask a point of information of your own partner? Generally, no. That's going to be considered bad form. There's not a rule against it. It's not against the rules to do that. In college, I had some fun. Tim and I would sometimes, we would play around with that. We would do it kind of just to have fun and be funny. But it will really tick off. There are some judges who are just really against that, and they consider that bad form. So I'm going to encourage you guys to not do that at all. Now, you can pass notes to each other. You can certainly write a little sticky note and be like, here, say this. So there is partner communication. You can whisper quietly to your partner at the table when you're not speaking. There is communication that can take place on that level. What you do want to check the rules on, and I'm not sure off the top of my head whether you can take a sticky note up onto the podium. I don't think you can. In college you can. I'm trying to remember which one is which, but I know in college you can pass a note to the person who's speaking, but you can't. I don't think you can do that in our league. I'll need to double check and get back to you on that. Yeah.
I don't think you're able to do it in team policy. I think it's specifically prohibited in TP, but I don't know about it in Parli.
Right, that's what I'm saying. In the Parli, I'll need to check the rules on that. But I do know it's considered bad form for you to ask a question of your partner. A quick story on that. Tim and I were debating this other top team from Berkeley in college, and both Tim stood up for a point of information and the opponent stood up for a point of information. I took Tim's point, and then after taking his question, I turned to the other guy and I was like, well, I've already taken a point, so you please sit back down. And it was really funny at the time. I'm not encouraging you to do that. And what I ended up saying to him is, hey, I'm just kidding. I'll take your question. I really did take his point. But it was funny at the time. It was a good fun. Okay, so with that, let's close this portion of the class off. And I will be here to answer questions. But we're going to take a break, and then we're going to move into our practice rounds after the break. So we'll take about 15 minutes at 7:15. Be ready to debate. Okay? All right, thanks, guys.